So what I'd like to do now is spend about 15 minutes reviewing our discussion about Chatzer SheAyno Mishtameres with regard to Tosfos on Daf Samach Ches Amud Beis, which appears on Daf Samach Tes, and the question of Das Acheres Makna, how it would be effective in the case of a Chatzer SheAyno Mishtameres. Because we saw in the Sugya in Bab Metzia Daf Yud Aleph that although, according to both Rabbah, Bar Chana, and also according to Ula, we require in Chatzer Omei B'tzad Sadeu, but nevertheless, from the story of Rabbi Gamliel and the Zkenim, where they dropped the requirement of Omei B'tzad Sadeu, so that Rabbi Yeshua and Rabbi Akiva were both able, through the rental of a piece of karka that of the sod of Rabbi Gamliel, they were able to be kona the maestros, and the Gemara says Das Acheres Makna. That's Rav Papa. So they could be kona b'toras Chatzer, despite the fact that there was no Omei B'tzad Sadeu. They were on the Sfina. They were not near the Sod. And Rashi says that that's not a problem for Ula or Rabbah, because they don't require Omei B'tzad Sadeu in a case of Das Acheres Maknos. And Rabbi Gamliel was Makna Metaltalin, meaning the Peiros, that were in the Chatzer to these two great Tanoim, and they were Kona through the Das of Rabbi Gamliel without being Omei B'tzad Sadeu. So it wasn't as if that Rabbi Yeshua and Rabbi Akiva were being Kona, a bird that flew through the Chatzer. That for sure would require Omei B'tzad Sadeu, because there's no Das Acheres Makna. But in this case, Rabbi Gamliel was being makna them, the Peiros, into their respective Chatzeros. And through Das Acheres Makna, Rashi points out, you don't require Omei B'tzad Sadeu. Okay then? So let me just review the two interpretations that we had of how Das Acheres Makna operates in the case of Chatzer SheAyno Mishtameres. Okay, then we want to review those two approaches. Excuse me for 1 second. Okay. So we have two possibilities. The first one is as follows. We have a chisaron in tfisas hachatzer, meaning when something flies into my chatzer and I'm not around to guard it then the Chatzer cannot be seen as an extension of my arm, as if I grabbed onto the object through my Chatzer. Chatzer is a lavar das, and we need some das to upgrade the Chatzer into a Chatzer atofeses that grabs onto the object, right? Because every kinyan requires taking the object into your rishus, and the Chatzer doesn't take it into my rishus unless it can be protected. And for that, I need omei b'tzad sodei. The chiddush of das acheres makna is that it becomes a Chatzer Mishtameres. Why? Because it's the interest of the makna to make sure that the object is not stolen and it is acquired or taken in by the kona. So he supplies the das acheres makna, meaning the shmira that transforms the Chatzer into Chatzer tofeses. Again, the problem is going to be in our case of Rav Gamliel. He's not anywhere near the Chatzer either. So how does Rav Gamliel's das acheres makna transform the Chatzer into Chatzer tofeses? He's nowhere there to guard the object from a thief, from hefkerus. So let's offer a different interpretation of Chatzer SheAyno Mishtameres. The problem of Chatzer SheAyno Mishtameres, even if I grant you that there is a tfisa that the Chatzer is capable of being tofes, but we don't have a das kinyan. And omei b'tzad sodeu means that he has a das kinyan. If that be the case, then in the case of Chatzer SheAyno Mishtameres, although there's no das kona, but there's a das makna, and the das makna will solve the problem, the chisaron, if you will, of das kona. Somehow the das makna is sufficient even without das kona. And truth be told, that's exactly what we were saying about a case of a katan. That if a katan is zocha liatzmo, which Tosfos is assumed is correct l'kuli alma, it's only through das acheres makna. He cannot be zocha from hefker, where there's no das acheres, except for a takana chacham mishum darkei shalom. On a deraisa level, however, he can be zocha liatzmo if there's das acheres makna. Now, where's the das kona? The katan is not capable of das kona, he's a labar das. And the answer is that das acheres makna would be sufficient as if there were das kona, and that's exactly why the sugya in Bab Metzia of Chatzer is a perfect analogy to our sugya of katan zocheli atzmo al yidei das acheres makna. In both cases, we have a das makna without a das kona. Because if he's Eino Omei B'tzad Sodeu, then his Chatzer could be Tofes, but there's no Das Kona. And in the case of Katan, if he's Zocher for himself, there's no Das Kona. And in both cases, that's the perfect analogy here, we're going to say that Das Acheres Makna replaces the requirement of Das Kona. However, the problem is that the Shita Mekubetzes there in Bab Metzia quotes Rabbeinu Peretz. It's interesting. Before we were discussing Rabbeinu Peretz, now again Rabbeinu Peretz. And it's clear from Rabbeinu Peretz that he's operating with the first side in our two possible understandings of how the chisaron of dasach of Chatzer SheAyno Mishtameres is fulfilled by das acheres makna. the first side, which means that we have to create a tfisa and convert and upgrade the Chatzer into a Chatzer Tofeses. Because he says, the B'chol Duchta Be'inin Chatzer Mishtameres Gam B'matana V'teida da mitam shlichusu d'mahani ki d'kavar schusu lo v'chol shliach mishtamer hu l'sholcho da shliach bardas be'inon. So he's talking about the shliach requiring shmira. Onav yesh lomer d'matana moil gam b'SheAyno Mishtameres mishum d'Ayno Mishtameres ki Mishtameres dami. It's pretty he's pretty explicit about this, that you through das acharis makna you convert the Chatzer into Chatzer Mishtameres. Diliolam hi Mishtameres lamakabel afki b'Chatzer Ayno Mishtameres came in the das acharis makna. V'rei ein shum adam yachol liknos ba. No one could be kona through this Chatzer, ki imidas hamakna. But who nosna, which I understand to mean he places, the makna places the object into the Chatzer, umakna osa lamakabel. V'nimtza shamatona mishtameres lamakabel. Right, like we said before, that the shliach is a bardas, and he's mishamer on behalf of the sholcha. So afki eina mishtameres l'shar b'nei adam, even though the existence of the makna and his supervision has no bearing on anyone else in the world, but nevertheless, mabakach mikol b'kol einam yichol liskos, but no one else could make a kinyan on it. Only this one person who owns the Chatzer. Avol b'mitzia. The mafkir, the hamafkir. No, I'm sorry. The mehefker who kol hakodim zacha. Anyone could come along and take it. Lachi lo zachya kishenim mishtameres. His Chatzer shenim mishtameres can't be zochavim. There's no das acharis makna. Anyone could come and take it. Diena mitzia mishtameres lebal Chatzer yosef mishar b'nei adam. So again, Rabbeinu Peretz clearly is operating with the first definition that das acharis makna is effective to make the Chatzer shenim mishtameres into a Chatzer mishtameres al yidei das acharis maknos. I mean, in that case, that has nothing to do with that case of Katan, because in Katan the issue is not shmira and tfisa, but rather the issue is das makna and das kohen. So therefore, according to Rabbeinu Peretz, we have two different, can I use the term modus vivendi, of das acharis makna, two different purposes and goals and achievements. Das acharis makna in the case of Kohen is going to supply a das kona, and das acharis makna in the case of Chatzer is going to make the Chatzer to Chatzer mishtameres. Those are two different dinim. The problem that I have is still bothering my mind. How does Rabbi Gamliel in Das Acharis Makna remove the chisaron of Ayno Mishtameres if he's on the Sfina? How does he have a long arm, so to speak, to guard the object and make sure it gets into the right hands? That I don't understand. Okay, Rabbosai, at this point, we're going to close down here. And we'll use the other link.